Hello, trade professionals. I'm here with Andy and Lalo. Hi, Andy and Lalo.
Good morning.
Did not forget you guys. Mention you guys first. My name is Annik, and I will be discussing some trade news with you today, one day ahead of Halloween. Spooky. We don't have any spooky trade news, but I would say anything is spooky on trade. At first, we have farm groups call on Australia to not sign dud trade deal with EU. I don't know if this might look stupid on me or not, but I had to look up the word dud. I wasn't sure what it meant. That's like an American term, right? Is it?
A dud is traditionally been associated with a ammunition that did not fire. It's a dud. It didn't fire. So, all right. So it has. So in this case, in this context, it's a trade deal that the farm community in Australia is saying it's not beneficial really to the Australian farmers.
Yeah. So they believe that the EU's proposed import quotas are overly restrictive, particularly for red meat, putting Australian farmers at a disadvantage compared to other exporting countries like New Zealand and Canada. Obviously, I read the article, but when I think about red meat and restrictions, I feel like restrictions are important. And I know Germany and stuff cares about the green environment and how animals are held, and I guess that's where the issue kind of was laying, how the animals are being held. So anyways, I just want to get a trade perspective and how this will affect this kind of trade deal, and if you think that Australia will sign this kind of trade deal.
Well, it basically, regardless of, like you were talking about, the green initiative and stuff like that, and animal rights and everything else, this a trade deal basically is boiling down that the EU has greater access to the Australian market than the Australia has in the EU market. And that's what's at issue. And as they're looking at it, Germany in particular has put in some additional quotas to say that, and a quota means that you can import so many goods from a country up to a certain point. And then after that point, either the quota is an absolute to where you cannot import any more quantity of goods after that, or when it's imported, it's at a much higher duty rate. Generally speaking, quotas are used to protect domestic markets. So in that, Germany in this effort is saying, or EU, I guess, is saying they're trying to protect European domestic farmers. But in the Australian farmers are saying, but in this particular trade deal that was negotiated with the two governments, Australia's getting the short end of the stick because Europe has greater access to the Australian market. So that's what it's boiling down to. The deal has been struck thus far, apparently. And so now it's at a point where the Australian Parliament and government is to sign and approve it and put it into force. And the Australian farmers, their association, is saying that they're not in support of that. So we'll see what happens with this.
Yeah, this has very little to pick sides or anything. It's just trying to figure out who or what is going to happen. I mean, it happens with every trade deal. Look what happened with even USMCA and NAFTA. I mean, that happened. People were saying, "No, I'm going to lose jobs. I'm going to." Everything's going to go into Mexico or, et cetera, et cetera. But, the realization of that, or the reality of that, is that, I know we're changing gears here a little bit, but the reality of it is that it created a bunch of jobs in the United States, and higher level jobs, not just the line worker jobs, So I felt it actually advanced us, we were way beyond the Industrial Revolution by then, but I'm just saying it furthered that process in getting us better jobs here in the United States that support the manufacturing of those products in Mexico.
Hey, folks, we've got a listener show coming up, and we need you to be on our panel.
We're actually going to make this our year-end, or one of our year-end wrap-up shows, and we really, really would like to hear from you.
Please let us know via LinkedIn and express your interest in that, and we're going to reach out to you so that we can get you on our show.
November 10th at 11 a.m. Central. We'd like to have you on our show.
Okay, the second article we have today is graphite buyers to boost imports ahead of China's curbs. So I thought it was interesting that this was even a possibility that before this trade, I'm not sure if it's a deal, but I know there will be permits involved. And before that, December 1st, so they're trying to boost it in November, these kind of sales, right?
It's the scenario where there are additional restrictions that China is putting on being able to export goods, graphite, if you will, and other commodities thereof.
December 1st.
Are part of the, And so, what's going to happen is people are trying to buy a lot of product in the month of November to try and get ahead of the additional restrictions, because once the restrictions come in, there are going to be more licenses and things of that nature. So that's what's going to create a surge here, is just trying to create something, or, an opportunity to buy before, if you will, it's more restrictive.
So do you think that after November, people will still have to obviously buy it, but do you think that the sales will go down, or do you think or because of the permits? I'm sure permits are going to be, are those going to cost companies money?
It'll be more bureaucratic, and I'm sure sales will go down because they're trying to buy a bunch now, if in fact those same factories and suppliers in China are willing to sell them in November. But the key is that they'll go down only marginally until the inventory works back out. But now what's happened in December is it will become more laborious in trying to buy the same type of products out of China. But the question is, why does China feel like they're having to put licenses or permits or additional restrictions on exports from China to other countries for these goods? And the answer there is, this is China's way of implementing another tactic of playing hardball. There has been around the world, and we've been talking about this since a long time here, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. It's anti-slavery is what it is. Europe has put in some legislation. The U.S. has, Canada has, Mexico has. That has actually deterred a lot of people from having to buy certain products from China, and they're looking at other sources and whatnot. This is China's way of retaliating to make it more restrictive in buying or in selling products like graphite and other things that are essential. What is this stuff? This stuff is essential in the manufacturing of electronic vehicles or electric vehicles, of batteries and things of that nature. Well, here's the thing. There's this big push around the world to try and go all electric. And, there's a lot of arguments with all that kind of stuff of good, bad, and different. But the problem is that China dominates the market with a lot of the minerals and products that are used in manufacturing the batteries and some of these things. So, the world has now become dependent on China to go this EV push. Whether you are in support of EVs or not, the issue here is China has 90% of the product, I believe, is what the article says. So all this is saying is that before December 1st, where it's going to become more restrictive, there's a lot of people out there trying to buy up as much as they can in the month of November.
Okay, got it. Well, so what would be like something who is in that industry, and has to deal with these kind of permits, what would you recommend to them, going into December 1st where you need those kind of permits? Do you think there's anything specific that they have to look out for, or do they have to get with, I don't know, a lawyer? I'm not sure how this process, but it seems like obviously you need a permit, and how is the process of that?
Well, it's just going to be the same as there's something else that China did earlier this year, which was a restriction of exporting of gallium and germanium. So those are also used in the production of batteries, electric vehicle batteries, and a lot of green energy materials or components. So it's just the same thing, and it's just they're going to just have to pretty much are controlling the market. Kind of like the oil countries, the oil producing countries, they control the oil that's coming out to, in my opinion, to level set the pricing, just to get more, and in some cases get less, but anyway, in most cases get more out of the oil, because you have no other choice but to go there. However, I did research and I found that there's other countries that produce. Madagascar is the second largest producer of graphite. So this is pretty much an opportunity for other countries like Madagascar.
To step up.
Right, yeah, and the only problem though, well, it says here Madagascar, Mozambique, and Canada actually are higher producing countries of graphite. The only problem is that I was also reading that it takes about 3 years to make the product safe. Once you mine it, you can't just pull it out and say, okay, it's ready for use. Apparently it takes 3 years before you can certify it as safe to use. So, I guess other than that, my only concern is that a lot of school kids are going to be in trouble because they're not going to have pencils anymore. Just kidding.
Hey, golf clubs, shafts and stuff, people want graphite clubs are going to be in trouble.
We have the third articles, and we've been talking about this topic for a while now. We're talking about U.S. export restrictions on ASML chip machine, which this has been in the talks for such a long time, and I'm guessing no one is really... I'm saying that wrong. It's not that no one is okay with it, because obviously we're for security, especially with not knowing what China is doing. But it seems like ASML is kind of trying to save their profits, because I guess most of their market is China. So what do you guys think about this whole back and forth, and where do you think this is heading? Or if this is justified by ASML, or do you think they shouldn't even question it?
Well, the article highlights the fact that the U.S. Is saying, they've already put in a restriction of advanced chips being exported to China. ASML is a Dutch company, so it's over in the Netherlands, and they manufacture a machine that generates or can manufacture advanced chips, medium of the road chips, as well as older type chips. So, a phenomenal machine. And so ASML is looking at what the U.S. is saying, and U.S. specifically has asked ASML to not sell their machine to China if it has any U.S. manufactured parts in the machine itself. And so ASML is saying, it agrees with the restrictions, but then the article highlights the fact that in looking at it, they were saying this whole endeavor should have more of a European solution or a European approach to it than just U.S. And so the issue there is going to be, Europe then, step up and do something. But the U.S. is just following up on its own restriction. And the objective here is that the U.S. government is saying they're trying to defer or delay China's military technological advancements by the use of advanced chips in its weaponry and military equipment and things of that nature. So that's what the objective is. So this is just kind of a sidebar article. It's just saying ASML, please don't, if it has any U.S. components in their machine, don't sell it to China. That's all that.
Well, they did say that they're okay with it. They said that they're not even questioning it. They're just, I think, yeah, like you said, how they highlighted about the European kind of way of viewing things and kind of dealing it like that. But I think it's very different because the U.S. has a very different relationship with China, right, than Europe. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay, here's the one thing, though, that I find interestingly enough is that China is playing hardball with the entire world. Europe, in this case, is slow to act. And I will just say in general, let me ask you a question, Annik. Do you know how to cook a frog? You can boil a frog in water alive, and the frog being in the water will never jump out as the water temperature rises if you only raise the temperature 1 degree at a time over a longer period of time. Eventually, that frog will literally be in the water and it hits boiling stage and it stays in the water because it has become accustomed to the water temperature. The point being is that China, over time, has slowly allowed or enabled these other countries to become more and more dependent on China manufactured goods and products.
I guess just in the sense of trade, as far as trade is concerned, I think this also emphasizes or brings to mind or brings to the forefront that, right now we're talking about ASML, being able to ship their equipment to make chips. The fact of the matter is that it goes beyond just that, in the sense that this is the U.S. telling companies that if you're making something that is restricted, it doesn't matter China. I mean, it could be Russia, it could be Korea, it could be anybody. I mean, any country. They're just basically saying, we want you to know that if it has American components or American parts, and you're thinking of exporting that to those restricted countries or parties, you can't do it. That's the condition as to why or how you did business with us. And it's really actually out there. There are those regulations and those laws and those sanctions, et cetera, that say, if you're buying this, you cannot use it. It has a restricted use pretty much, So anyway, and I think the big lesson here also is that, that although we're talking about ASML, it's not just restricted to just ASML. They're not the target. The idea of exporting something is what I feel is the main point that might be coming out of this.
So I have two more things that I'm going to address. They're articles that I just want people to be aware of, and we'll tag them down below, please, Lalo. So one is, it talks about how to attract mega projects. And it's a very insightful article. It's in Kansas City. Oh, that was not intentional, but I'm a newly Chiefs fan. So it happened to be in Kansas City.
Probably because of Taylor Swift.
Well, I don't say why. I can't say why, but
actually, there's been a lot of the Chiefs, and rightly so. Though I mean, she sparked a lot of positive things for him. Anyway, go ahead and finish your.
And Kelsey's, he's doing amazing. He's been not left to his own devices. So, anyways, yeah. So that's a great article to read up on. I'm not going to go into detail now, but I just thought about it, and it would be great to just get it down below in the features. And then we have one little spooky story, kind of sad, but since it's Halloween tomorrow, I was thinking we're going to go into some shocking news. There's several missing after cargo ship sinks off German coast. Yeah, and it's also near me, so yeah, it's kind of sad. And not a great story. So we'll link that
Folks,
down below.
Folks, pray
too.
for the families of those crews, because obviously the ship went down and people are missing in that scenario as well. So, you have that, and you have the wars going on with a lot of folks that are getting killed and missing and whatnot. So there's a lot of turmoil right now. So a lot of prayers are needed.
Yes. And that's how we're ending the episode on that note. But
On a brighter note, on a good note, fun fact, in the 1400s, it is believed that Germany originated the tradition of providing cakes for birthdays. And
Wow.
later in the 18th century, there was also a German celebration called Kinderfest.
Kinderfest. Kinderfest.
Kinderfest.
Said it right.
During which children were given a cake with lighted candles in the morning of their birthday. So happy birthday. It started where you are right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my birthday today.
Annik.
Thank you so much. And I would have not wanted to celebrate with anyone else other than on the podcast. So again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in to my birthday episode.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.